Well, I'm here to tell you that this moment right now is your turning point. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. You see, most people go through life completely unaware of the incredible power that exists within them. They wake up, follow the same routines, think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and wonder why nothing ever changes. They blame their circumstances. They blame their past. They blame other people. They blame the economy, their upbringing, their genetics, their bad luck. But here's what I need you to understand. Everything you've experienced up until this moment has been preparing you for what I'm about to share with you. Your struggles weren't random. Your pain wasn't meaningless. Your failures weren't proof that you're not capable. They were all necessary steps in your evolution. I want you to think about your life right now. Think about where you are. Think about what you're feeling. Are you satisfied? Are you living the life you imagined for yourself 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or are you settling? Are you accepting less than what you know you're capable of? Most people are living far below their potential, not because they lack ability, but because they lack awareness. They don't understand how their thoughts create their reality. They don't realize that every single thing they experience in the external world is a direct reflection of their internal state. Your brain is the most sophisticated piece of technology in the known universe. It contains roughly 86 billion neurons, and each one of those neurons can make up to 10,000 connections with other neurons. That means your brain has more potential connections than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Think about that for a moment. You're walking around with an instrument of infinite possibility inside your skull. And most people use only a tiny fraction of its capability. Why? Because they've been conditioned to think in limited ways. They've been programmed by their past experiences, their culture, their education system, their family beliefs, and their social environment to think small. But you're different. The fact that you're here, listening to these words, means you're ready for something more. You're ready to break free from the chains of your conditioning. You're ready to step into the fullness of who you truly are. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. But you have to be willing to let go of everything you think you know about yourself. You have to be willing to question the story you've been telling yourself about why you are the way you are. Let me ask you something. Who are you when nobody's watching? Who are you when you're alone with your thoughts? Are you the same person you show the world? Or are you playing a role? Most people are actors in their own lives, performing a character they created years ago based on the expectations of others. They're so busy maintaining this false image that they've completely lost touch with their authentic self. They don't even know who they really are anymore. They've become strangers to themselves. Here's the truth. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your failures. You are not the labels people have given you. You are not your diagnosis. You are not your trauma. You are not your financial situation. You are not your relationship status. You are not your relationship status. You are not your job title. You are so much more than any of these things. These are just temporary conditions, not permanent identities. But somewhere along the way, you started believing that these external circumstances define you. You started identifying with them. And when you identify with limitation, you create more limitation. Your thoughts are not just abstract concepts floating around in your head. They are real, measurable electromagnetic signals that influence every cell in your body. Every thought you think triggers a cascade of chemical reactions in your brain. When you think a thought, your brain releases specific neurochemicals that make you feel a certain way. Those feelings then generate more thoughts that are consistent with those feelings, which produce more chemicals, which create more feelings, and the cycle continues. This is how you get stuck in patterns. If you wake up every morning and start thinking about your problems, your brain immediately begins producing the same chemicals it produced yesterday when you were thinking about those same problems. Those chemicals signal your body to feel the same way you felt yesterday. And when you feel the same way you felt yesterday, you start thinking the same thoughts you thought yesterday. Before you even get out of bed, you've already become enslaved to your past. You're living in the past, reliving it over and over again, and wondering why your future looks exactly like your history. But what if I told you that you could change this pattern right now? What if I told you that you have the power to interrupt this cycle at any moment and create a completely different outcome? You do. The moment you become aware of your thoughts, you step out of the automatic program. The moment you catch yourself thinking the same old thoughts that lead to the same old feelings, that lead to the same old behaviors, you have a choice. You can either continue on autopilot or you can consciously choose a different thought. This is where most people fail. They understand this concept intellectually, but they don't practice it. They hear information like this and they think that makes sense, and then they go right back to their habitual way of thinking. Understanding something intellectually is not the same as knowing it experientially. You can read every book on swimming, watch every video on swimming technique, memorize all the physics of how the body moves through water, but until you actually get in the water and swim, you don't truly know how to swim. The same applies to transformation. You have to practice. I'm going to share something with you that changed everything for me. There was a time in my life when I felt completely powerless. I looked at my circumstances and I felt like a victim. I felt like life was happening to me, not for me. I was reactive, not creative. I would wake up and immediately check my phone, letting the outside world dictate my internal state. I would scroll through messages, emails, social media, news, and within minutes, I was already in a state of stress, anxiety, or comparison. I was giving my power away before I even started my day. One day I realized something profound. I realized that every time I reached for my phone, first thing in the morning, I was literally looking for something outside of myself to make me feel a certain way. I was addicted to the external world. I was addicted to checking whether anything had changed in my life. And the answer was always the same. Nothing had changed. My external reality was just a mirror reflecting back to me my internal state. And my internal state was one of lack, worry, and dependence on external validation. I just followed that signal. And what happened was, later on in life, as I taught, so I made a decision. I decided that from that day forward, I would not touch my phone for the first hour of my day. Instead, I would spend that time working on my internal state. I would sit quietly, close my eyes, and instead of thinking about my problems, I would think about the person I wanted to become. I would think about the life I wanted to create. I would imagine it in such vivid detail that my brain couldn't tell the difference between what I was imagining and what was actually happening. At first, it was incredibly difficult. My mind would wander. I would think about my to-do list, my obligations, my worries. But I kept practicing. Every single day, I would sit and rehearse a new version of myself. I would imagine how that version of me would think, how they would feel, how they would act, how they would respond to challenges. And something remarkable started to happen. The more I practiced being this new version of myself in my mind, the more I started becoming that person in my life. This is not magic, this is neuroscience. When you repeatedly think about something, you create and strengthen neural pathways in your brain. Your brain doesn't know the difference between what's actually happening and what you're vividly imagining. To your brain, both are real experiences. So when you mentally rehearse being confident, your brain creates the neural circuitry for confidence. When you mentally rehearse being abundant, your brain creates the neural circuitry for abundance. When you mentally rehearse being healthy, your brain creates the neural circuitry for health. Athletes have known this for decades. They use mental rehearsal to improve their performance. Studies have shown that basketball players who practice free throws in their mind show nearly the same improvement as those who practice physically. Why? Because the brain is activating the same neural networks, whether you're actually doing the activity or just imagining it. You are literally rewiring your brain with your thoughts. But here's where it gets even more interesting. When you change your thoughts, you change your energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life. Everything in the universe is energy, including you. You are not solid matter. If you looked at yourself under a powerful microscope, you would see that you're made up of atoms, and atoms are 99.999% empty space. What we perceive as solid is actually just energy vibrating at different frequencies. Your thoughts are energy. Your emotions are energy. And that energy radiates out from you, influencing everything around you. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the energy of the space? Maybe you walked into a room where people had just been arguing, and even though nobody said anything, you could feel the tension. Or maybe you've been around someone who just lights up a room with their presence. That's energy, you can feel it. even if you can't see it. And the energy you're putting out is constantly interacting with the energy around you, attracting experiences, people, and circumstances that match your frequency. This is why you can't create a new future while you're living in the energy of your past. If you want something different, you have to become someone different. Not just in your actions, but in your thoughts, your feelings, and your energy. You have to embody the version of yourself that already has what you desire. You have to feel it before it happens. This is the key that most people miss. They wait for something to happen in the external world to make them feel a certain way. They say, I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll be confident when I lose the weight. I'll be peaceful when my problems are solved. But that's backward. If you have to generate the feeling first, you have to become happy now. You have to become confident now. You have to become peaceful now. And when you do, you signal your body and the field around you that you are no longer the person who needs those things to feel whole. You become whole first. And then your external reality reorganizes itself to match your internal state. This is not wishful thinking. This is how energy works. Think about the most successful people you know or have learned about. What do they all have in common? They had a vision of something that didn't exist yet. And they held that vision so clearly in their mind that they began to feel as if it had already happened. They didn't wait for evidence. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't wait for the perfect circumstances. They decided who they wanted to become, and they started showing up as that person before they had any proof that it was possible. That's what faith really is. Not religious faith, but faith in yourself, faith in the process, faith in the unseen. It's the ability to believe in something before you see it. It's the willingness to feel the emotions of your future reality before it manifests. It's the courage to walk toward your vision even when everything in your current reality is telling you it's impossible. This is what separates those who create extraordinary lives from those who settle for ordinary ones. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds great, but you don't understand my situation. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know how hard it is for me. And you're right. I don't know your specific circumstances. But I do know this. Every single person who has ever achieved anything meaningful has faced obstacles. Every single person who has ever transformed their life has had moments where they wanted to quit. Every single person who has ever risen above their circumstances has had to face the voice in their head that says, this is too hard. You're not strong enough. You're not smart enough. You're not worthy enough. The difference is they didn't listen to that voice. They recognized it for what it was. Fear. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is simply your brain's way of trying to keep you safe. Your brain is designed for survival, not for growth. It wants to keep you in familiar territory, even if that familiar territory is painful, because at least it knows how to navigate it. The unknown is perceived as dangerous, even if the unknown is actually where your breakthrough lives. Every time you step outside your comfort zone, your brain sounds the alarm. It floods your body with stress hormones. It creates worst-case scenarios. It reminds you of every time you've failed in the past. It tells you to go back to what's safe and familiar. This is normal. This is your biology. But just because it's normal doesn't mean you have to obey it. You are not your brain. You are the awareness behind your thoughts. And once you understand this, everything changes. You can watch your thoughts instead of being controlled by them. You can observe your emotions instead of being swept away by them. You can notice when fear arises and make a conscious choice to move forward anyway. This is true power. Not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of it. Courage is not about being fearless. Courage is about feeling the fear and doing it anyway. It's about acknowledging the discomfort and choosing growth over comfort. I want you to understand something crucial. Your comfort zone is killing your potential. Every day you choose comfort over growth, you're choosing to stay the same. And staying the same means you're actually going backward, because the world around you is constantly evolving. If you're not growing, you're dying. There is no standing still in life. You're either expanding or contracting. You're either becoming more or becoming less, either moving toward your potential or away from it. The life you want is on the other side of discomfort. The person you want to become requires you to do things the current version of you doesn't want to do. That's the price of transformation. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable. You have to be willing to feel awkward. You have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to look foolish. You have to be willing to disappoint people who want you to stay the same. You have to be willing to let go of who you've been to become who you're meant to be. This is where most people stop. They want the result, but they're not willing to pay the price. They want the transformation, but they're not willing to go through the discomfort. They want the breakthrough, but they're not willing to break down first. Because here's what nobody tells you. Transformation is messy. It's not a smooth, linear process. It's uncomfortable. It's confusing. There will be moments where you question everything. There will be moments where you feel like you're going backward. There will be moments where you want to give up and go back to your old life. But those moments are actually proof that you're changing. When everything in your life starts to feel unfamiliar, it means you're becoming unfamiliar to yourself. When you feel uncomfortable, it means you're breaking out of your old patterns. When things feel like they're falling apart, they're actually falling into place. You just can't see it yet because you're still in the middle of the process. You have to trust that on the other side of this discomfort is the breakthrough you've been seeking. So let me tell you about the gap. The gap is the space between who you are right now and who you're becoming. It's the space between where you are and where you want to be. And this gap can feel terrifying because you're no longer the old you, but you're not quite the new you yet. You're in between identities. You're in between realities. You've let go of the shore, but you haven't reached the other side yet. You're floating in the middle of the river, and it feels uncertain and scary. This is the most critical moment in any transformation. This is where most people turn back. They get uncomfortable in the gap, and they retreat to what's familiar. They go back to their old thoughts, their old feelings, their old behaviors, and they tell themselves, see, I knew it wouldn't work. I knew I couldn't change. But the truth is they were so close. They just needed to stay in the discomfort a little bit longer. They just needed to trust the process a little bit more. They just needed to keep going when everything in them wanted to stop. The gap is where your faith is tested. It's where your commitment is tested. It's where your desire is tested. Do you really want what you say you want, or are you just interested? Because interested people do things when it's convenient. Committed people do things no matter what. Interested people make excuses. Committed people find solutions. Interested people let their feelings dictate their action. Committed people act regardless of how they feel. You have to be willing to do the work even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. Because feelings are the language of the past. Your feelings are based on your past experiences. So when you're trying to create a new future, your feelings are going to tell you to stop. They're going to tell you it's not working. But they're going to tell you to go back to what you know. But you can't trust those feelings. You have to trust the vision. You have to trust the process. You have to trust that consistent action in the direction of your goal will eventually create momentum. Momentum is everything. When you first start making changes, it feels like you're pushing a boulder up a hill. It's hard. It's slow. You don't see results right away. But if you keep pushing, something miraculous happens. The boulder reaches the top of the hill and starts rolling down the other side on its own. Suddenly, things get easier. Opportunities appear. Doors open, resources show up, people enter your life, everything starts flowing, but you only get to experience that momentum if you push through the hard part first. Most people quit before they reach the top of the hill. They push for a while, don't see immediate results, and give up. They go back to the bottom and start pushing a different boulder, only to quit again when it gets hard. They spend their entire lives starting and stopping, never building any real momentum, never experiencing the breakthrough. Don't be that person. Commit to one mountain. Choose one direction and keep pushing until you reach the summit. The view from the top is worth every moment of struggle.